Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with He-Man Thundercats. Previously, Mumm-Ra was turned into an ever-living milkshake that allowed less than worthy Skeletor to use the Sword of Power and be imbued with the power of Grayskull. This caused He-Man to revert to Prince Adam right in front of his dad, which wouldn't have been as much of a problem if he didn't still have that pesky chest wound from earlier. Skeletor is all ready to take Castle Grayskull for himself when the Thundercats arrive to remind everyone that yes, they're in this story too. Issue 3's cover sees the cats attacking Skeletor, not unlike how the previous issue ended. Skeletor does not have the Grayskull crest that indicates his usurping of He-Man's power, but maybe that's to avoid spoilers. Anyway, we open to Skeletor effortlessly deflecting the feline warriors in one magical swing, as well as a new narrator. Villains, heroes, battles eternal. Yes, Battles Eternal, the weekly series written by James Tynion IV, with very little actual battling and is just 26 issues of characters hitting themselves with frozen ham hocks while complimenting Harper Row sitting in a lazy boy. This is the sorceress of Castle Grayskull, pondering if peace is possible given how inevitable conflict seems to be, and that the universe needs its heroes to slay the proverbial dragons. Lion-O counterattacks, determined to return the sword to its rightful owner, but Skeletor effortlessly repels him, revealing that he's fully aware of who these warriors are.
Let's just say my mummy told me. I also know that Marmot needs to be let out before he soils the evil carpet again, so can we wrap this up quickly, please?
Panthro and Tigra chide his childish, headstrong actions, unbecoming of a leader, and Cheetara tells him to stay while they protect him, and they all charge after the villain, leaving their king with Snarf. They call him a child, then head into battle with a deadly enemy with 2 children. That's gotta be a real boost to self-esteem, huh? Cheetara uses her super speed to decorate Skelly with explosives courtesy of the Thunder Kittens. It's what all the creeps are wearing these days.
Lightweight, not too confining. Blinking lights draw attention to the gun show. I could get used to... I'm okay.
That's the problem with his ensemble. You can only wear it once. Panthro comes in with a few solid hits as the sorceress narrates that good versus evil seems like a very simple, primal solution to a wicked problem. But if evil is causing conflict, how does conflict solve anything? Maybe it ultimately can't, but it does keep evil in check, away from gaining the power for which it lusts. Which is actually a good point. It can seem hypocritical for heroes that want peace to basically punch, shoot, stab, and pummel their enemies until they win the day. However, heroes differentiate themselves by either not killing their enemies or using lethal force as a very last resort. Or they may deny power, or at least only use it when tempered by wisdom, deny themselves their baser impulses, lest they fall victim to the same temptations as those they fight. Or maybe I'm reading too far into a comic about cat people that fight a living Halloween USA mascot. Tigra's next up by lighting Skeletor on fire.
I am too smart. I am too smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-R-T.
It certainly hurts him. He screams in pain, and by their expressions, it looks like the cats are rethinking that maneuver. Look at those kittens. They are definitely having nightmares after this. That is, if they survive, because Skelly begins laughing it off, and I don't think because the flames are cooking his funny bone.
You foolish felines haven't a third earthly clue what you're up against.
He's an insane, homicidal, power-hungry maniac, but you have to respect his wordplay. He starts getting creative with his magic, through portaling his punches to take out the already traumatized kids, to apparently using the Shadow Clone Jutsu to take out the older warriors. Just before he can give Panthro a Prince Adam special, Lion-O blinds him with the Eye of Thundara's torch app, and follows up with a little blast and slash. Feel my magic, Dark Mage! Hear my roar! Lion-O, pairing Thundercats with the word roar, not really a good idea these days. Just saying, prepare for a lot of nasty tweets from people angry at you for reminding them that they willingly watched a show they didn't like that was geared at an audience about 20 years younger than them.
You want magic? Abracadabra!
He then proceeds to go for low-hanging fruit, physically and verbally, kicking the Lord of the Thundercats and his family jewels, then remarking,
The future generations of Thundercats disappear!
Gene, don't hit him in the crotch!
Yes, hit him in the crotch!
Lino's left eye is slashed and he loses his grip on his sword, which Skelly takes by the blade, which is always a bad idea, and he wonders if that potential he sensed in the young king was actually his weapon. I'm much more than any sword, because I have family.
What is this, Full House?
With a much more subdued Thundercats ho, the others have gotten their second wind, and charged the villain with their logo in the sky for dramatic effect. Though Panthro seems much more hulked out than before. His shoulder blades look like they're about to explode. What kind of funky catnip has he been hoarding? And it looks like on the very next page, those usurped swords switch hands. That's a really pointless use of magical teleporting, or an artist flub. The Thundercats all get their hits in, be it from flying kicks, smoke bombs, snappy one-liners, or Lino getting the Sword of Omens back and blasting the villain with the Eye of Thundera. But that's not all, because Panthro must have run real quick to the Thunder Tank so he could slam Skelly with its giant metal paw and then bat him away. But then Skeletor conjured a giant cucumber, the tank thought it was a snake, and then jumped away in fear. Actually, he lifts the vehicle up in frustration, power of Grayskull and all that, then brags further that he is the power ever living. But Mumm-Ra interrupts, because he is the power ever living, lives as long as evil exists, yada yada yada.
Mumm-Ra, I'm in the middle of a battle here.
Mumm-Ra cares not. You must pay for...
Oh, Mumm-Ra does care, for I fight the Thundercats.
Proceed. You'd think that if drinking the potion gave Skeletor knowledge of Lino and company, the reverse would work, and Mumsy would be aware of what's presently happening. But this exchange between the two is so perfect, I can honestly say I don't care. It's like the Odd Couple meets Moon Knight. He then proceeds to throw the tank at the cats. Hey, that's no way to treat a thunder tank.
You have to treat a car like you treat a woman.
Go on.
No, I sense I've made a mistake of some kind.
They of course leap out of the way, though I sure hope Panthro installed airbags in that thing, and Lino resumes his attack, playing on a peculiar weakness of Mumm-Ra's, showing his reflection. He even states he doesn't understand why it works, but it does, with the mummy ordering his host body to flee. Then that plane from issue 1 fires a bunch of missiles at the villain. Or villains, thanks to Snarf of all Thundercats. But maybe shouldn't tell his allies he apparently covered his eyes during that maneuver.
Where's Skeletor? Did we atomize him? What's all this wee stuff, Snarf?
Their foe will likely resurface, but they've recovered He-Man's sword and proceed to Eternos to return it. Elsewhere, the two villains begin arguing over who had the biggest loss. The one who just lost a powerful weapon, or the one that got turned into evil hot cocoa mix. Mumm-Ra begins taking control of the Eternian wizard's body, doing a whole Three Stooges routine before actually morphing it to regain his ripped, ever-living visage. But Skeletor keeps changing back, and they exchange insults with each shift. And while Skelebor is nice, I gotta give the win to Skullface's Dumb-Ra the Ever-Drooling. However, this takes the wind out of both of them, even the ethereal one, oddly enough, as they're too evenly matched.
Perhaps we're going about this the wrong way.
Say on.
Okay, on.
Much of this coincided with the sorceress's narration, pointing out how evildoers are too loath to trust or share, so alliances between them are pretty seldom. Meanwhile, at the contradiction, Skelly suggests a formal partnership, working together to gain the power of Castle Grayskull, use it to finally destroy the Thundercats, and take the Eye of Thundera, which is for some unexplained reason the only way they can separate. This sweetens the deal for Mumm-Ra enough to agree, and he has a plan to achieve their lofty goals, so they begin consulting the Golden Discs of Knowledge. First, we will need 30 Eternian chicken eggs, 10 sacks of flour, a crate of sugar, a barrel of cocoa.
You foolish phantasm! That's the golden disc of baking! You're reading the recipe for a chocolate cake!
an enormous chocolate cake, which we hide in and leave outside Castle Grayskull for the sorceress to bring inside.
No, it'll never work. I tried that with a giant box of candy on Valentine's Day once. Though we did learn that Tri-Klops was allergic to nougat.
Narration pontificates about heroes believing it necessary to fight for justice, believe in good, and that they can rise to the challenge, but they also fall. The Thundercats arrive in Eternos in time for the 2-page spread that is Prince Adam's funeral.
Can't one dinner go by where we don't talk about your rotting corpse?
Sorry.
Not just the Masters of the Universe, and likely the royal court, much of the kingdom itself seems to be in attendance given the crowd. All somber, sad faces, yet even though everyone is in their battle gear or day-to-day clothes, what sticks out like a sore thumb to me is Teela's pose here. One leg bent forward, hands on her hips. This does not look like the stance of someone mourning their best friend. This looks more like hot girl posing. More like she's upset about something, but still wants to look saucy for the crowd at the same time. Nothing against wanting to look saucy, but, time and place is all I'm saying. Later, Adam has been placed in a private chamber, with King Randor and Cringer nearby. Lion-O approaches, giving his condolences and still holding the coveted sword, saying he's been made aware of what kind of hero Adam was. Well, half the time anyway. Too soon? Randor is beginning to realize this himself, lamenting how he couldn't see the secret that was kept from him, who his son truly was. The Thundercat says he still likely felt Adam's love, regardless of his role as prince or hero, and this gets the monarch choked up in a very appropriately silent panel. And Cringer being there just reminds me of those videos of pets that lose their owners and wail and cry, and some even refuse to leave the grave sites. Though I don't think many of those have been tigers. Gifted the Sword of Power, Randor thanks the younger king for his kind words, and Lion-O admits that he doesn't feel worthy of that title yet, though hoping to one day achieve the status of his own father, or even the Eternian royal before him. Randor figures Claudius would already be proud, and Lion-O should worry less about living up to his predecessor's ideal, and more about being true to himself. They're about to go have that slashed eye looked at when the ground quakes. Is another planet from a nostalgic TV show suddenly appearing in the sky? Which one is it this time? Cybertron? Melmac? The future Earth from Cadillacs and dinosaurs? Turns out Mumm-Ra and his calcium-craniumed cohort have managed to enslave the ancient spirits of evil, who now have corporeal form. Very large ones at that, and are ordered to retrieve the power of Grayskull for the cooperating villains. This is observed by the sorceress in her bird form as the issue ends, narrating the question of who will help her keep power from evil's grasp and slay the proverbial dragon. I don't know about slaying, but I hear there's a book series about training dragons. Maybe that'd help? Issue 4's cover looks really cool, with He-Man and Lion-O in apparent conflict, surging with differently colored energies. It's very exciting and really poster-worthy. I'm sure it fulfills certain daydreams older readers had when they were kids of these two meeting up and seeing who was stronger. The issue begins with the enslaved spirits, alive monsters, I guess, already wrecking Eternos, with various Masters of the Universe seeing the citizens to safety. A new narrator mentions knowing that all things end, but knowing something intellectually isn't the same as accepting it in your heart. Much like how I know Sobe doesn't sell Macintosh Apple Chair anymore, but deep down, I refuse to accept that it's not a personal attack against me. Skeletor and the ghostly Mumm-Ra are some distance away, basking in the carnage they've achieved together, between using the golden discs to free the spirits and capitalizing on the ever-living connection via Mumm-Ra to control them. Also, Skeletor giving the finger guns is just awesome.
We do make quite the couple.
Hey, don't encourage the fan chippers. Who am I kidding? They probably wrote those stories up 30 years ago. While the attack rages on and some aerial defenses are deployed, tensions arise between our heroes. Panthro and Tigra are varying levels of condescending when offered a blaster by Man-at-Arms, and Teela chides Lion-O for this, which only earns her Chitara's ire. Lion-O vows that his team will stand by Eternia to defeat the evil spirits Skeletor and Mumm-Ra once and for all. Sly, that is being led by some royal guard, overhearing this promise and scoffing at the young king's ignorance. The desiccated wizard can't be defeated, as he resurrects again and again, which gives Lion-O an idea. Shirts for your legs! How has no one thought of this before? Shortly, he's flying back to Third Earth with Adam's coffin and Cringer, who's refused to leave his master's side. Panthro doesn't much like him going on this mission essentially alone, but inspired by Randor's words last issue, Lion-O feels this is his duty as a king himself. Arriving at the Black Pyramid, he sees a craft used by the mutants of Plundar, and tells Courage to stay alert for any other visitors as they go inside. The tiger blames himself and his inability to fight for what happened to Adam, and asks if this plan will work. Lion-O hopes the very same energies keeping Mumm-Ra a-ticking may be used to bring back the prince. It's a long shot, but one he's willing to try as they put Adam's body into the sarcophagus. Wait, this isn't the revival sarcophagus, it's, Mumm-Ra's toilet. He really needs to label these things more clearly. Over the last few pages, narration notes how the way one deals with loss is as telling about a person as what they did in life, like how the narrator's mom lost everything but fought to establish a new life for herself. After an awkward wait, the sarcophagus finally surges with energy, seeming to be working, when there's a noise from elsewhere in the lair. Lion-O will guard Adam while the cowardly tiger investigates, because the king can tell Cringer is a hero at heart. And it's a fun chance to experiment and see if the Eye of Thundera will give him a heroic boost like it does his team. Yeah, sounds totally safe, folks. The treasure room is being looted by Tri-Klops, Beastman, Monkeyan, and Jackalman, who I guess is fine after being punched into orbit in issue 2. Given the planet's new proximity, I guess it's possible He-Man's mighty wallop sent him all the way to Third Earth, somehow unaffected by the heat of re-entry, and maybe landing on the world's softest pillow. Their revelry is cut short with the arrival of, well, this. Cringer transformed into a more anthropomorphic version of his Battle Cat form, with some of his armor plating and the Thundercats logo on his chest. I bet Kellogg's is kicking themselves now for passing him over for that job as the Frosted Flakes mascot. The design looks really cool, like the Thunderian magic kind of worked off the power of Grayskull that usually changes Cringer, creating a best-of-both-worlds kind of deal. And he does not mess around, going at the minions with tooth and claw like they owe him money, and he hasn't had lunch yet. I mean, He-Man did make a joke about not feeding him more often. Anyway, an anxious Lion-O hears something in the casket, only for it to burst open with energy and a very unhappy-looking He-Man. He, too, was disappointed by the series finale of Star vs. the Forces of Evil. He immediately attacks Lion-O, who tries to talk him down, but realizes it won't work. This ain't the Hulk, and he ain't Scarlett Johansson. I've been kissed by your blade once already. I've no desire to repeat the experience. It was sloppy and used way too much tongue. Not very gentlemanly, if you ask me. Using the sarcophagus seems to have added a bit of insanity to the restoration, for which Lion-O apologizes and goes on about the promise he made to Randor, even though he may as well be speaking space Swahili to his bonkers contemporary. He manages to get the sword of power from him, but it doesn't make things easier as he had hoped, getting smacked across the room instead. When throwing a giant stone skull doesn't work, Rage Man tries drowning him in the fount of evil purple stuff. Lion-O's only hope now is a super soaker filled with sunny delight. A little stab loosens his grip, and before another giant statue can be used against him, Lion-O makes a move to match his opponent's ridiculous strength. Sword of Omens! Give me power beyond power! And don't just play the Reading Rainbow theme song again. It wasn't funny the first 3 times. This bulks up the Lord of the Thundercats, leveling the playing field, even if he's not that used to lifting giant statues, which they swing at each other. But that wasn't really his intention, to make this a roided-out fistfight. He uses the Sword of Omens again, this time for sight beyond sight, but viewed by He-Man. What follows is a horrific vision of what may yet be. Skeletor triumphant, a subjugated sorceress, Thundercats and Masters of the Universe, slain or enslaved under Mumm-Ra, even some with their heads on pikes. Yes, some fates are far, far worse than death. I told Fisher-Price not to do a Snyder cut of their Viewmaster slides, but did they listen? Lion-O is forced back, thinking his plan didn't work and he has to slay the guy he tried to help, only for his weapon to stop just as his target's eyes stop glowing red. I did a little research and it turns out the sword cannot be used for anything but good, only coming alive to combat evil. It's not unlike that episode of Samurai Jack where it was revealed his sword couldn't harm an innocent life, which felt like a real Deus Ex Machina then, and this is Not too different, even if it is layered in some Thundercat lore. Anyway, He-Man's back to normal and troubled by what he saw, but is assured it hasn't happened yet, which is unusual, as sight beyond sight doesn't generally give future vision, though it's speculated that happened because it was in combination with the power of Grayskull. Any more of our catchphrases we can fit into this scene before the next page? A bye Thundera or till next time, friends? By the way, who are you? I'm Lion-O, a friend.
Weren't you on a show with a robot?
Mind your own beeswax.
The narration, which has been He-Man incidentally, mentions that while all things must pass, it is necessary to fight against the darkness as long as one can, that anything is possible when worlds collide, as exemplified by his Earth-born astronaut mother marrying the Eternian king. Remember when he said his mom fought to create a new life for herself? That apparently meant becoming queen of a magical science planet at the center of the universe. Quite the struggle, I'm sure. The two heroes find Cringer back to normal, licking his paws on a pile of treasure, surrounded by 4 evil henchmen that may or may not be dead. Aw, who's got a taste for blood? You do! You do! He's ecstatic to find He-Man alive, and they head to Lion-O's ride as lightning strikes all around the pyramid, a sign that they must return to Eternia quickly, as Castle Grayskull is being besieged by the evil spirits. Hey, Sorceress fought off the Girl Scouts and the tax collectors. She'll fight you suckers off too. These issues were really good, great fights and solid pacing for the turns the story made. While it shouldn't be too shocking they found a way to bring He-Man back, it not only worked with the existing lore of the Thundercats so it wasn't too outlandish, it also gave us a good reason to see the two stars of their respective franchises have a little fight that felt organic. That also lent to some clever twists, like Lion-O summoning physical strength, which I don't remember happening in the old show, but it doesn't seem unlikely, and using the Eye of Thundera's sight on another person to cleanse their mind. They've shown a bit of tension between some of the Thundercats and, well, at least Duncan and Teela, which felt a little off to me. Seems like a giant monster attack is a bad time to criticize another culture's tech, even if you don't think it's as advanced as yours. Seems like Panthro could stand to watch some Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to learn some valuable life lessons about teamwork and respect. Or for some 90s action cheesiness. One could argue that at least Teela and her dad are reeling from the loss of their mightiest hero and close friend. They have an excuse to be curt. But when was the Thundercat tech head so arrogant? And yet they had the nerve to criticize Lion-O for being childish. There is also a slight disparity in tone in the book, which I'll get into next week. Tune in to see how the coveted action figures of yore handle some kaiju-sized enemies, and if any of their weapons will show up in your local toy aisle. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.